shifters, entrepreneurs on the move, with your host, Amanda Barr, bringing you power-packed 15-minute conversations with entrepreneurs who share their stories of shifting in life and business to keep on the move. So excited for our episode today. We have Ryan Gaines, founder of Mutiny Recordings, started with Island Def Jam and then on to Walt Disney Studios, and today represents artists and bands and finding a place for them in visual media, i.e. music licensing. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited. And for our audience, I'd love for you to kind of take us down memory lane and catch us up to where you are today. Give us a little backstory.
Well, yes, I went to film school at Cal State Northridge. I've been an LA resident for my whole life. And so I stayed local, did that whole thing, wanted to be a film producer, and then, to make a long story short, realized my strength was more in the music side of things. So I got a start over at Fox Music, actually, working for the studio and the president there. And he helped me get a job at Island Def Jam, where I worked for about a year. And then I went on to work 5 years at Walt Disney Studios doing music supervision, which is for all the live action theatrical films from Disney, Touchstone, and Miramax. And I was part of the team responsible for basically identifying the music needs of those films and going to the world of music, past, present, and future, meaning stuff to be created, to fulfill those needs. And was part of the team that went on to win the Academy Award for Best Original Song for the movie The Muppets.
Wow.
After that, yeah, look at that. And then 2012, June 2012, I left and decided to open up my own company, and have been independent since then. So for about 8 years now.
Yeah, you're riding such a train of like incredible things. What inspired you to say, I want to do this on my own and I want to run my own company?
Honestly, I was not completely satisfied with the monetary benefits of working in the studio, and I was on the buyer side at that time, and I realized there's only so much upside when you're a buyer. That if I want to make money, then I have to go to the sales side, because then the sky's the limit, and it really is how much work I put into it is how much money I'll make out of it, for the most part. And so, I wanted always to own my own thing and be my own boss, and had a great foundation that was given to me through my various mentors and bosses, and felt like I could hit the ground running, and I did. And it took about 18 months for me to go from the red to the black, and it's been upside ever since. Yeah.
Wow. Now, when you started this out, you had experience in the space, but how did you navigate those waters of kind of diving into this your own? Because you have to connect with not only brands, but you also need to connect with artists, and you've kind of got a niche, right, in the space too, if I understand correctly.
Well, yes and no. I mean, like, I want to be able to fulfill the needs of most any buyer. So whether it's a film, a television show, or an ad, trailer, promo, whatever it is, they're going to have specific needs. Sometimes it's vintage, which is a niche that I've definitely carved out for myself. I have a lot of songs that I control 100% of the rights from like the 1950s on up. And the last couple of Campbell Soup commercials that I've aired have been my songs. So
nice.
That's been great. And there's always television shows that need a flashback or are based in a different time period, like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or Mad Men, which was my first ever license with my vintage catalog, and so on and so forth. So there's always a need for that, but then there's the future needs. And like, for instance, the Motorola Razr commercial that's running right now, that's the song that I pitched to the production. That was very forward-thinking, very contemporary, was brand new and unreleased when I pitched it to them, and it was a perfect song for the campaign, and they felt that way, and so they went ahead and licensed it, and it's been pretty fantastic.
Wow. Now, when you think of like that world, like what were some of the things as like, you know, obviously the show is all about shifting. How did you kind of in music, you're listening to music probably in a whole different world than the average listener. So how are you shifting through and kind of pushing forward and keeping moving on those different things? Because you're listening to vintage and you're also listening to today. And how do you even dive into that world? And what shifts are you making?
Well, it's interesting because I'll have people that are not in my industry ask me like, "Oh, you work in music. What are good bands today?" And the honest truth is, I really don't know, because I listen to my music and the artist that gets sent to me, and I have to identify as something like this is really good for licensing, and it has a cinematic feel to it. Because there will be songs that can sell 1 million records that'll never get a license, and then songs that will never sell a record that'll make $1 million in licensing. And so to understand the difference there and be able to identify that's where I think my background and my ears are really are fit into the industry. And like for instance, Justin Bieber, who's a huge artist, he never really is in licensing. I'm sure he's been licensed before, but he's not a big licensing artist because his type of sound doesn't really check the boxes that drive a scene forward or drive an ad product, a brand's product forward. So it's really being able to, that's how I have to think. When I listen to music, I think about what would this be good for? Is it, it's a dark emotive song, and then that'd be great for a sad scene or a montage sequence or an end title, or this is a very upbeat, happy song. Great, this could be great for an ad, or that establishing shot in a whatever it might be. So I think in terms of the visual.
Oh, that's cool. Now, if someone were to either be in this field or starting out a business, what would, some advice be? Like, you dove into this world, you had experience in it, but it's different being an entrepreneur and running this yourself. So what are some of those kind of nuggets that you've taken away over the last number of years of working in the space and working with artists and working with brands and stuff?
Well, I mean, you have to identify what you want out of life, honestly. If you're going to enter the industry, it's a very, very oversaturated space, and you have to there's 1 million people trying to do what you're trying to do, and honestly. And so you really have to identify what it is you want, what kind of money you want to make in life and all that stuff. So for my advice to people that are just getting into it, that are in their early 20s or late teens, I tell them to reverse engineer. Like, how much do you want to be making? Does money really matter to you? And if it does matter, then how much and what jobs? Go take informationals with people. People are really happy to sit down and speak over a cup of coffee and just tell you the reality of the situation. Like when I got into the space I'm in, it was a lot more. The salaries are way higher. Then a few years into it, they dropped dramatically. And every day there's companies opening that are trying to compete with me. I've been in it for a little while, so I have roots, and therefore I have constant business all the time. So it's really identifying strength, identifying where the market is, and what your skill set is. And if your skill set is you have great ears, then awesome. Maybe you want to be involved in an opportunity where you are listening creatively. But if you want to be in the industry, but you're not really that type of creative person, then maybe you're more on the legal side or the administrative side or something to marketing side, whatever it might be. It's just you have to be able to be very, very realistic, because in order to be successful, you have to be a reliable source. And if someone's asking me for something and I don't have good ears, then they're not going to come back to me. And I give them something that they didn't ask for, or I give them something that I want them to hear, but that's not really doesn't fit their brief, as we call it, like their description of what they are asking for. It's a lesson in humility. It's a lesson in really listening to what people are asking you for and delivering.
Do you really, just from your sharing, like, has there been those times you only get one shot potentially with a brand, and if you're not able to deliver, because I'm sure many people are pitching songs or different aspects of a song to companies, do you only get one shot with somebody, or do they give you another chance, like, hey, that was okay, but you have something better? How does that work? I would, that's kind of nervous. Like, I can only imagine the finger going on the button to send it. Like, I hope it works.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much like that, but you have to they'll be very confusing because sometimes you'll get a brief that says, hey, we want a song, and they'll give a description of the type of elements they want, but then they'll say, and here's a reference track, and they'll have a YouTube link to a song, and you go, wait, these two things are not really compatible. What you're saying you want, what I'm hearing. So you have to kind of read through the lines and be able to, how I find success is I really, really think about the picture. And what's going on in the scene, and why do they want this? I've had references come in for songs that were way different than the song I pitched, and I've landed the song I pitched because it complemented the visual, which is 100% what my job is to do. Awesome. It's a fascinating world. I know that I love music, but to dive into that side of it, it's a whole nother world all in of itself. And I guess as one kind of takeaway, if somebody were either to want to be in this space or to be in the music space, what would that nugget be if they wanted to be in your role or in somewhere in that? Make as many friends as possible, ask as many questions as you can that are intelligent, and learn from your mistakes and learn from other people's mistakes. There's a bunch of different tidbits. I mean, that's can't sum it up in one thing. Sorry. Yeah. And what about if someone were to be an entrepreneur, brand new, since you were in the corporate side and then you dove into the entrepreneur world, what would be one thing you would say, like, just to help keep them on the move? What would be something on that side? You have to find an endpoint. Like, what do you want to be doing? And in the industry, whether or not you're in the project development side, the music side, the whatever side of the entertainment industry you're in, people jump around all the time. You spend a year or two on a desk, then you move on. And you just have to have an end trajectory, because if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. And, the famous quote by Zig Ziglar, and it's a very true statement. And you just really have to know what you want. And I'm always identifying new things that I want and saying, okay, now how do I build it? I love it. You're such an inspiration. I love it, Ryan. I know, it's been such a pleasure. I know this is a jam-packed 15 minutes, and thank you for being on the show, for sharing a little glimpse of your world. And for our listeners out there, how can they get in touch with you? I mean, maybe for artists, if they wanted to connect with you, or brands that are looking for your magic ears, how does somebody get in touch with you? Well, I have a website, www.mutinyrecordings.com. That's M-U-T-I-N-Y, recordings, plural.com, or info@mutinyrecordings.com. Awesome. Well, we're going to let you get on, because I'm sure you've got plenty to do today. And thank you again for being on the show. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed the episode today. We appreciate each one of you for listening and hope you left inspired and motivated to keep on the move. If you think this episode might help or inspire someone else, please share. Don't forget to subscribe and keep in the loop to hear more incredible stories of entrepreneurs like yourself on the move. Thank you for our supporters, RTB Capital Group, Financial Powerhouse, Callcast, and Power Podcasting. Now, get out there and keep on the move.